So we have discussed what benefits were there for provinces after the 18th Amendment, but now also let's discuss the problems of implementation after the 18th Amendment. So there were issues in education, health, food and agriculture, labor, and finances. So in health, there was this issue of regulation of licensing and registration of drugs. So who will do the licensing? Who will do the regulation of drugs? Which of the four provinces will do it? If two provinces, if each province does its own thing, then maybe one province gives a license to a drug which the other province doesn't give. So what will happen? Will there be police established at the border to stop that drug from coming into the other province? So these are the issues. Of course, there is also the issue of drug pricing. So usually before 2010, it was the federal government who controlled the prices of drugs. Who will do it after the 18th Amendment? Or all the provinces do it separately in their own province? And of course, there's the issue of, one province giving having a less price and another province having more price. So what will happen then? There are also the issues about the vertical programs, the programs which federal government implemented, like the vaccination program or the polio program. So all these programs, what will happen to them? Will they be devolved to provinces also, or will they be remain at the federal level? So these are the issues related to health after the 18th Amendment. In education, there was the issue of one curriculum. So many major political parties and leaders have called for one curriculum, but after 18th Amendment, of course, curriculum, education, all these things devolved to provinces. So how now one curriculum will be established, or is it feasible? Should there be a one curriculum? So there was this debate. Then, of course, there was the issue of HEC and provincial higher education commissions. What are the powers of higher education commission at the federal level, and what are the powers of the provincial education commission? Who will appoint the vice chancellors, and how will the budget distributed with them, and who will have the standards? So all these things have to be decided after the 18th Amendment. Then if we go look at food and agriculture, there was issue of wheat is a staple diet, and of course government controls the wheat price. So who will now set the wheat price? Who will oversee the wheat procurement from all over the country? Will it be provinces, or will it be federal government? Who will fund the agricultural research? So will it be Punjab or Balochistan or other provinces, or will it be federal government? Punjab can benefit more from the agriculture research, but Balochistan can too, because it needs more research to increase its acreage and arable area. So all these things had to be decided. In case of labor, there was the issue of social security at the federal level. So social security schemes were implemented at the federal level. After 18th Amendment, they had to be transferred to the provincial level. So EOBI, which is Employees Old Age Benefit Institution, it works at the federal level. How it will be transferred at the provincial level? How will the assets of EOB be divided between the provinces? Then again, there is another issue of worker welfare fund. Again, a tax on the businesses, which was then used by the federal government for labor protection and for the improvement of labor conditions. How that workers welfare fund will be distributed. Then of course there is the issue of foreign agreements like International Labour Organization. Who will satisfy them, whether it will be provinces or federal government? Then there was the issue of financial resources. So they are rich and poor resources, how they will be equalized. The absorption capacity of the provinces, lots of money was now thrown to provinces, but can they spend it in a good way? borrowing from provincial governments was also an issue. So Punjab Bank or KP Bank or Sindh Bank. There was also the different taxes like taxes on ports, the issue of natural resources, who will get the first, who will give the concessions. Then, of course, currently another issue is the Supreme Court. So Supreme Court is part of the federal government, but a populist Supreme Court will interfere in the provinces. So what are the provincial rights under the 18th Amendment regarding Supreme Court decisions?